Welcome, everybody. I am so glad to be here with all of you on Sunday night. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. We are going to have yet another one of our great late night conversations. I have got a great topic to talk with all of you about tonight, something that's very dear to my heart. So, like I said, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. Let's go.
American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government action.
Welcome, 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 everybody. So glad to be here with all of you. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. For those of you who may not be familiar with how we do this show, I give my opening remarks, which is what I'm doing right now. I tell you what's on my mind. While I do that, I'm writing your super chat questions down as I speak. Then we do the roll call, where I find out who is on the other side of the camera. We get to find out about the community of people who watch these streams. It's always really exciting to find out who's on the other end, who's watching in the different parts of the world, etc. And then after that, I answer your super chat questions for the rest of the night. And it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. So yeah, if you got anything you want me to talk about in the second half of the show, shoot me a super chat. I will be writing it down. And if there is no further ado, let's get started. Folks, there are certain themes that we talk about on these live streams. You know, obviously, we talk mainly about capitalism, socialism, the struggle for justice. We talk a lot about Christianity and the Bible. We talk about Marxism and imperialism and all of that. But there are certain current events that we talk a lot about on these streams. For example, I have been telling you all about Kamala Harris for the longest time. September of 2020, my book hit the shelves, Kamala Harris and the Future of America, an essay in 3 parts. Got a lot of very good reviews, and I talked about the woman who became vice president of the United States. And what's interesting is she hadn't even been elected vice president yet. I wrote a book. I started writing it after she got the nomination, after I'd done a huge amount of research, after she was picked as vice president. I wrote a book about her after Biden picked her. That book got picked up, got a lot of reviews that were pretty widely appreciated. The Morning Star daily newspaper in the United Kingdom, some daily print newspapers based in India. They also published reviews of it. Sputnik Radio was broadcasting interviews and selections from my book all over the world. I mean, it was a hit. The book it's fair to say it was a hit. And everything that I said in my book on Kamala Harris has turned out to be true. Now her staff says that she is a narcissist, like I said. A sadistic narcissist. I mean, everything that I've written in my book has basically panned out to be even more true than at the time I wrote it, right? And that shows that, to some degree or other, because we study world events from an anti-imperialist perspective, because we pay attention to things like personality theory, we can kind of track and understand why things happen to some degree. I mean, we don't have a magical crystal ball. We can't practice divination. We can't predict the future. We have no mystical, magical powers, but we have an understanding of world events, right? And that understanding gives us kind of, look, I was able, through some direct connections, I knew somebody who knew Kamala Harris's father, gave me, inside information, told me, look, one thing led to another, and I was able to start talking about Kamala Harris. And we now know that Tulsi Gabbard is pretty much drawing from my analysis of Kamala Harris. She's raising the alarm about how Kamala Harris is so much more dangerous than Joe Biden. This is a contribution that we made by observing and paying attention to things that other people don't notice. We are able to pick up on things and have acute attention to things that other people that are more focused on the surface level stuff miss. We're not always on top of all the surface level stuff. We don't necessarily keep track here on these streams about, did Donald Trump fart again? Or, what did the latest celebrity do? We're paying intimate attention to very specific topics, things that are very important to us, right? And the psychology and the development of Kamala Harris and who might be grooming her to be the commander-in-chief, and the Hillary Clinton State Department and how she was selected, and why Tulsi Gabbard used her limited time on the debate stage to go after Kamala Harris. We talk about that on these streams, and we're paying acute attention to things that other people miss. And that is what makes our community and the analysis of the Center for Political Innovation so gosh darn unique and important, right? If we just got on here and talked about the stuff everybody else talked about, it wouldn't be valuable. But we have our ideology, we have our perspective, but we also pay very close attention to very specific topics that other people do not pay attention to. And that is why what I'm about to talk about is very important. Because not only do we observe, we're not just casual observers here. We don't just sit on here and go, oh, by golly, that happened. By Jove, something happened the other day. What do you think about that, Caroline? Did something happen? Why, yes, it did happen, Joe. It happened. Why, goodness gracious, something happened. I think this about what happened. I think this about what happened. We don't do that on these streams. It's not just casual observing. I believe that you, not me, you can have an impact on world events. Not a huge impact necessarily, but with your little contribution, we can nudge the forces of history. We can have an impact. I believe we can do that with our efforts to push the conversation one way, to raise certain issues. I believe that we can have an impact, but it's a matter of looking for openings, looking for little cracks where we can insert ourselves. Look for a place we can throw a pebble and make a ripple. That's what we have to do. We have to be strategic. Something I talked about a lot on these streams is becoming aware of your own strength, not fantasizing that you're Superman, that you're super powerful, but also not falling into the trap of believing that you're powerless. Becoming aware of what your capabilities are, flexing the muscles that you have, and swinging into action to do what it is you're capable of doing to have an impact on the course of world events. And that all of us who take on the responsibility of being global citizens, the responsibility of engaging with and taking up history's challenge, it is our job not just to fantasize that we're revolutionaries. It is actually our job to figure out what contribution we can make. The second verse of the Internationale, everyone knows, well, not everyone knows, but the anthem of international communism, right? Arise, ye prisoners of starvation. Arise, ye wretched of the earth. That's the first verse. Many people do not know the second verse, but the second verse to the American version of the Internationale, which is not commonly sung, right? The American English version, not the British English version, not the Billy Bragg version, but the American English version of the Internationale. The second verse goes like this. We want no condescending saviors to rule us from the judgment hall. We workers ask not for their favors. We must consult for all To make the thieves give up their booty, to free the spirit from the cell, each must themselves decide their duty. They must decide and do it well. And I have always found that second verse of the English translation, or the American English version of the International, to be important, right? We want no condescending saviors to rule us from the judgment hall, right? Which is, we're not looking for some rescuer. We must ourselves, or we want no condescending saviors to rule us from the judgment hall. We workers ask not for their favors. We must consult for all. To make the thieves give up their booty, which, now booty obviously has a different connotation, but back then booty, it was like a pirate. If someone steals something, arg, me booty, it's stolen goods is booty. To make the thieves give up their booty. But then the second part, I always really like the next line. To free the spirit from the cell, meaning that we're not trying to cram human beings into a box. We're trying to unleash the human spirit, unleash human creativity. To make the thieves give up their booty, to free the spirit from the cell, to unleash human potential. We must ourselves decide our duty. Meaning, it's up to you. We must ourselves decide our duty. We must decide and do it well, meaning that we have to figure out what contribution we can make. It reminds me of another, a classic Woody Guthrie song. You got to go down and join the union. You got to go down and join the union for yourself. Nobody can join it for you. You got to go down and join the union by yourself, meaning that you have to make a choice, right? And that the struggle of trying to change the course of human history, the struggle of trying to have an impact, whether you see this from a communist perspective, trying to take up history's challenge, push forward the contradiction, advance historically progressive forces, march us toward a higher mode of production and a higher historical plane, whether you see this from a Christian religious perspective, trying to battle against Satan, to advance the forces of good, to achieve God's kingdom on earth, however you're looking at this, right? You ultimately have to determine what kind of impact am I myself capable of having, and what can I do to maximize that impact, and how can I experiment to see what kind of impact I can have. That's basically what the struggle that all of us who take this seriously are doing. We're trying to figure out, how can we change the world? What are we capable of doing? And once we've experimented a little bit, we want to make it a little bit bigger. We did one thing here. We wrote a book about Kamala Harris. We promoted it. We popularized it. So now, many of you will know that the issue that I have really gone all in on, which many people say it doesn't make sense, Caleb. You're always talking about Russia. You work with a Russian media company. You're always talking about China and how they're the vanguard of American communism. But the issue that you all know I have become obsessed with over the last year, but for much longer than that, but in particular the last year, has been peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. I have been obsessed, just obsessed with the fact that under Donald Trump, Kim and Trump met with each other, and the government in South Korea was getting friendlier to the North, and the government in the North was getting friendlier to the South, and Russia and China were facilitating a situation where North Korea might give up its nuclear weapons, and Donald Trump became the first American president to ever visit North Korea, and then John Bolton ruined it, and everything stopped. And it was a mess. It was a mess. But I've noticed, and I've pointed out to you all, that since leaving office, Donald Trump has continued to emphasize that he wants peace with North Korea. And I've said this is an opening. This is an opening. Those of us who want peace with North Korea, who want to make life better for the people of North Korea, who see Kim Il Sung and Kim Jong Il and Kim Jong Un as leading a mass movement of their people for national liberation. Those of us who see anti-imperialism as the future, those of us who want to support the Democratic People's Republic of Korea and end the Korean War and bring the troops home. This is an opening. The fact that Donald Trump, for whatever reason, and people speculate about why, Donald Trump has made this his issue, right? And we noticed also Tulsi Gabbard has also made this an issue. Tulsi Gabbard, who, former Democrat, quit the Democratic Party, member of Congress, now hanging out with Republicans. Tulsi Gabbard has also been making the Korean Peninsula one of her big issues. And we like Tulsi Gabbard on these streams. And she hosted for Tucker Carlson, and that, this is something that if we can intervene, we can continue to highlight how important it was that Donald Trump visited People's Korea. We can highlight this at every opportunity. We can raise awareness about this. It's an opening for us. It's an opening for us. So that is why what I'm about to tell you is so gosh darn important. Because again, you can say, oh, Caleb, what you guys do has no impact whatsoever. This just happened. This is a news item that happened over the weekend. Roll it, Jimmy. There's no Jimmy. It's me. I don't know. Isn't that this is a thing people say? Roll it, Jimmy. Or, there's no Jimmy. I'm just going to put it on.
President Mike Pence and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley have heavily criticized former President Donald Trump after he celebrated the North Korean government's appointment to the World Health Organization. Pence and Haley, who are both potential candidates for the 2024 GOP presidential nomination, made the comments during interviews with Fox News in Iowa on Saturday. Trump congratulated North Korean leader Kim Jong-un on his social media platform Truth Social, linking the comments to an article about the North Korean official appointed to the executive board of the WHO. The announcement prompted immediate criticism from neighboring South Korea due to North Korea's history of ignoring WHO policies.
Like, comment and subscribe for more news.
So, over the weekend, North Korea got an official appointed, got its first official appointed to the board of the World Health Organization. Now, that's a big deal for North Korea, right? The World Health Organization is the UN body that is, key in, promoting health around the world. But the significant thing is that Donald Trump gave North Korea and Kim Jong-un a shout out on Truth Social. He congratulated them. He said, great work on Truth Social. And then what happened next? Mike Pence and Nikki Haley both came out swinging against him, saying, how dare he do that? They both criticized Donald Trump for doing it. This is what Mike Pence said.
Organization let America and the world down during the COVID pandemic. I mean, they literally were complicitous in covering up what was happening in China, and we held them to account.
Bullshit.
During our administration. But look, whether it's my former running mate or anyone else, no one should be praising the dictator in North.
No one should ever praise North Korea. No, we praise the head choppers in Saudi Arabia. No, we praise the death squads in Syria that the USA is arming to try and overthrow the government. No, we praise the Nazis in Ukraine, but no one should ever praise the president of North Korea, a country that's been surrounded and locked out of the global economy, but is still launching spacecraft into orbit. I mean, come on. No, you can't do it. But look, this is Donald Trump's tweet. Not his Truth Social, right? Congratulations to Kim Jong-un. This is great. This is great.
North Korea, or praising the leader of Russia, who has launched an unprovoked war of aggression.
Yeah, totally unprovoked. The USA toppling the Ukrainian government in 2014, that never happened, right? I mean, all the weapons the USA's poured in, But
the leader of Russia, who has launched an unprovoked war of aggression in Ukraine. This is a time when we ought to make it clear to the world that we stand for freedom, and we stand with those who stand for freedom.
Yeah, well, the people of the Korean Peninsula have lost the freedom of having their country unified, and they've had their country divided, and that's not freedom, and they would like to reunify. Anyway, I'm going to write the super chats down. Thank you for the super chats. Okay. All right, that's one. That is incomprehensible. So I heard that, right? Donald Trump gave a shout out on social media. He praised Kim Jong-un. Awesome. Mike Pence and Nikki Haley both took a dump on Donald Trump for praising Kim Jong-un. Not surprising. They're both neoconservatives. But then it gets even better. This is Donald Trump, a recent appearance he did on a podcast.
And North Korea was a big problem. Obama said we're going to go to war with North Korea. And Kim Jong-un was a big problem. And he wouldn't take Obama's phone calls, wouldn't take any meetings with him, wouldn't do anything. And then I started with him. Then all of a sudden, we met, we got along. We had no problem with North Korea. Now they're acting up again.
What's that first call like, Mr. Trump, with when you try to get a hold of Kim Jong-un? Like, how does that happen?
He actually called me, and we did get along.
Like, that's crazy.
So there you go, folks. There you go. There you go. I mean, it's happening. There you go. I mean, it is happening. I don't know what to say. I mean, you make your own judgment. But what I have been saying, and the theme that the Center for Political Innovation has been raising for the past few months, we've been saying, finish what Trump started, peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. We've been emphasizing that. And now Donald Trump appears to be doubling down on the position. Look, I'll just show you. This was us. This was us outside the White House, right? This was us outside of the White House. This was us outside of the White House during our conference, the Summit Against Hypocrisy that we did in March. Just watch. We were outside of the White House. How did this stop? This was a great moment. June 30th, 2019. The leader of People's Korea and the leader of the United States shook hands. They met, the first president ever to visit the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. We had Donald Trump trying to make peace with a country that is still technically at war with the United States. Donald Trump was trying to open the door to peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. There would be hope to bring the troops home from South Korea. There would be hope that there could be denuclearization, that North Korea wouldn't feel threatened anymore, that there could be no more bombs and weapons, and the people of Korea could reunify. And Donald Trump going to People's Korea was sabotaged. It was sabotaged by John Bolton and the neocons, the same forces that got us into Ukraine, the same forces that are escalating and pushing buttons against China and Taiwan on the Taiwan Strait, the same forces that want World War III sabotaged the peace process on the Korean Peninsula. We're here to say, finish what Trump started. We want peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. We want U.S. leaders and the leaders of People's Korea to sit down. We would like to see trade between the United States and People's Korea. We would like to see those railroads in South Korea that have been built. We'd like to see them in action and see the Korean people trading with each other. We don't want war. We don't want money wasted on international confrontations. And we also don't want a police state. And at the same time that the big bankers who control Joe Biden, the Silicon Valley monopolists and fascists, the same forces that control Joe Biden, are waging a war not just around the world, but against the American people. They are driving our country into poverty. Our trains are derailing. People are breathing in deadly chemicals. The water is not properly purified. Jobs are falling apart. Schools are falling apart. It's a nightmare. They have waged a war against us. And instead of rebuilding America, they're trying to move toward a low-wage police state. That's what they're doing here in the United States. They're trying to move toward a low-wage police state. We saw what happened, what's been revealed about January 6th. That was a setup. We saw that those people were led to do what they did for propaganda purposes. We call for an amnesty. We don't endorse what the people did, but they were enabled to do it and set up to do it by the American government. The FBI the Secret Service, other agencies enabled what happened on January 6th to happen. Those folks were entrapped. And we say that until they're going to be honest with the public about what really happened on January 6th, there needs to be an amnesty for those who've been arrested. And the same goes for the Uhuru Movement. A group of black revolutionaries, black activists, had guns pointed in their faces, drones flown into their homes. They were terrorized and accused of being Russian agents. Why? Because they were organizing for the rights of black people, organizing for the rights of their community, providing services that were not available in their community. They're waging a war against us. At the same time, they're waging a war against China, Russia, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, and any country that dares break out of their financial system. And it is our responsibility to oppose it and to join arm in arm with the people of the world against imperialism. So, as you all know, that was in front of the White House. That banner was unfurled, and we were out there with our bullhorns out in front of the White House. Saying finish what Trump started. But then that's not the only place that our banner has been unfurled. Certainly not the only place. Here's a quick clip of what happened just a week ago. We were in New York City. This is on 42nd Street.
Peace with Russia. Peace with China. Peace with...
See that banner? That's the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula button. Banner. It's right there.
With Russia. Peace with China. Peace with Russia. Peace with China. Peace with...
We were in front of the United Nations with our banner. We marched from Union Square all the way up to the United Nations with our banner that said, finish what Trump started, peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. And that banner was at the United Nations. I'm telling you, folks, I think that we are having an impact because what we've been saying, which is that Donald Trump, one of the things that defines him as a candidate is that he wants to negotiate with Kim Jong-un. I think it's being confirmed, and we would love that, John, but we'll talk about that. I think that we can recognize that that this is having some impact. That the fact that this is one of the defining aspects of Donald Trump, it's getting around. Donald Trump made a point of congratulating North Korea on Truth Social. Nikki Haley and Mike Pence attacked him for doing so. And now Donald Trump has doubled down on a podcast and talked about how awesome it is and how much he wants to continue negotiating with North Korea. I'm telling you, folks, we saw a crack. And now we're going for it. We need to get this banner up in many different places, right? Think about where you could go with this banner. We could ship this banner to you, right? If you're in the CPI, right? We could get you. It's not an expensive banner. We ought to get that banner, that finish what Trump started banner. We ought to have that unfurled everywhere we possibly can, right? We should get a billboard with that banner made. Imagine that. If in the middle of the highway, people were driving down the highway, all of a sudden they saw a picture of Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un shaking hands, finish what Trump started, peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. That would be badass. Would that not be the best billboard to put on the highway? We could put it on a highway near a military base. We could put it on a highway near a Korean American community. We could put it on a highway, all kinds of different places. Wouldn't that be beautiful if we did that? We should get this, finish what Trump started, peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula banner. We should get that everywhere. Because this is a crack. This is an opening. We want to finish what Trump started. That is something that we, as the Center for Political Innovation, that's something we want to do. We want to finish what Trump started. We want peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. We say that our enemy is not in Pyongyang and that Kim Jong-un should be a friend of the American working people, right? And we have made this banner and we have started this campaign and it's starting to look like it's catching on. I mean, the fact that we were just out in March in front of the White House and now last weekend we were out at the UN with this banner and it's happening. folks. It is happening, right? There's Bismuth Hertz and Timoshenko, and it's happening, right? We're seeing Donald Trump double down on, yes, I am the negotiate with People's Korea candidate. We were right. We were absolutely right. And this is exciting. This is something we can do, right? This is something that we can do. This is something that we can do, and we ought to do it, right? We ought to do it, and it's having an impact. And I'm exhilarated. I am just exhilarated to see that we're having an impact, that we are making a contribution, right? This is the kind of thing. We are changing the conversation around the Korean Peninsula. We are doing that. We've got Mike Pence and the neocons on the defensive. We are changing the conversation. So let's take this further. Let's figure out a place you could unfurl this banner in your neighborhood, your community. Let's figure it out, right? This is something that we can do. This is something that we can do. So we ought to gosh darn do it, right? I'm exhilarated. I'm exhilarated about this. So I just wanted to share that with all of you. It's absolutely phenomenal. This is great. This is really, really great. So I'm going to mention a couple other things. A couple other things here tonight I wanted to mention to all of you. All right. One of the things I wanted to mention to all of you is that, I talk a lot about Superman on these broadcasts. You all know that. You all hear me talking about Superman. And, it's been one of my classic remarks. I talk about how Superman was a socialist. I talk about how Superman, faster than a speeding bullet, faster than a locomotive, able to leap a tall building in a single bound. Look at the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Superman. But I talk about how Superman and the Superman comic books had a progressive, revolutionary edge to them. About the first adventure that Superman ever went on was to rescue a group of striking miners from their crooked boss. Their crooked boss was putting them in danger, so Superman flew in to rescue a group of striking miners. I talk about how Superman fought against the Ku Klux Klan, and he battled against the KKK, right? And how that was an important thing that Superman did, was he fought the Klan. And during the Second World War, they had Superman opposing racism and such, and that was a big deal. I talk about how he was called the Man of Steel, the Man of Steel, and we all know what Man of Steel, we all know how to say that in Russian, right? How do you say Man of Steel in Russian? And that wasn't an accident. It was Stalin, right? Superman was Stalin. And, when Superman talked about truth, justice, and the American way, he was speaking for the Roosevelt Coalition. He was speaking for the Popular Front, anti-fascism, anti-racism, anti-Nazism, bringing forward the working class, the creators of the wealth, the steel workers, bringing them together, struggling for justice, the United States and the Soviet Union and China teaming up to fight fascism. That's the spirit that you get from those Superman comics. And there's other great values in Superman. Superman doesn't like violence, right? Superman, yes, he does do a lot of fighting. He fights bad guys. However, he always saying how much he hates violence and how much he thinks violence is not a good thing. He's a peace-loving kind of guy. Superman is also from a small town. He's from Kansas. He's from Smallville, Kansas. He grew up on a farm, right? And 1936, the presidential candidate of the Communist Party USA was Earl Browder, and his nickname was the Man from Kansas. And Superman is the Man from Kansas, the Man of Steel, Stalin, the Man from Kansas. He's a small town farmer, grew up on a farm. And, he doesn't like violence. And, he could be a celebrity. He could be the most famous person in the world. He could rule the world as the absolute dictator. But instead, he doesn't. He lives a humble life as mild-mannered reporter Clark Kent. He doesn't want glory and fame and honor for himself. He just wants to do the right thing. He just wants to help the innocent. He just wants to live a normal life. But every so often, there's a case where a train is about to go off the tracks or a terrorist is about to explode a bomb. So Superman has no choice. It looks like a job for Superman. So he has to run into the nearest phone booth and change into his costume and swing into action to protect the people. And that's who Superman is protecting. He's fighting for the people. He's fighting for the working class, the people who produce the wealth of the country. He's fighting for striking workers. He's fighting for peace. Superman is a hero of the people. And who is the villain? Who is the villain in the Superman comics? Who is the villain? Why, it's none other than Lex Luthor, a maniacally evil, bald guy who runs a big, huge corporation and has lots of money and wealth and is obsessed with technology and computers and technological advancement. But he's not using the computers and the technological advancement to make a better life. And he's not using the millions of dollars from his huge corporation. He's not using that to make a better life for the people. Instead, he's trying to rule over them. He's a technocrat. He's a technocratic fascist. Basically, Lex Luthor is Jeff Bezos. He's Jeff Bezos. He is Lex Luthor Bezos, the maniacally evil Silicon Valley fascist who is bald and hates the people and is trying to control and manipulate the people. That's Lex Luthor. But Superman, the man of steel, the man from Kansas, the man from the heartland who opposes racism, opposes war, and struggles for the common people, Superman flies into action to battle against Lex Luthor Bezos and fight for the common people and oppose violence and try to bring people together, black and white together, the Soviet Union and America together, against fascism, against war, against technocracy, against Malthusianism, in favor of growth and optimism and progress, truth, justice, in the American way. If you are a genuine communist, you gotta love Superman. Everything good about communism. The kind of communism that we need to be communicating to people. The kind of communism you get from the writings of William Z. Foster and Gus Hall. That is Superman communism. It's optimistic. It's hopeful. It's about bringing people together, not tearing people down. It's about love and brotherhood and kindness. It's about bringing out the best in people. You know, you watch one of those old 1980s Superman movies with, who is it, Christopher Reeve. You just feel good after you watch one of those movies. You just feel good. There's just something about those movies, right? They're not epic works of art, right? I mean, this is not Shakespeare, but you watch Christopher Reeve fly into action and kiss Lois Lane and then go into the phone booth and change out of his glasses. Something in your heart just feels good. And that music, you know, that John Williams music that they play with Superman, dum 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 dum, it gives you an optimistic vibe. There's just this optimism and hope to it. And there's just something good in Superman. There's something good there, right? Beneath all the evil in this country, beneath all the ugliness and hate and pessimism and hopelessness and cruelty and indifference to other people's feelings, Superman is good. Superman is good, and Superman is America. Superman is part of the American spirit. All over the world, people identify Superman with America. Superman is a very American story. And as much as we get frustrated with the American people, whether they're being woke or they're being fascist or they're being MAGA or they're being indifferent to the suffering of other people or they're being selfish or they're being pessimistic or whatever, I believe that there's a little bit of Superman inside of every American. There's a little bit of Superman left in our culture. As much as it's been buried by the technocratic machinations of Elon Musk and Lex Luthor Bezos, as much as that is the case, I believe that there's a little bit of Superman left in the American people. You're not going to get the American people to be Maoists. You're not going to get the people of America to be Stalinists. You're not going to get the people of America to be Bolivarians or Baathists or Castroists or Kim Il-sungists. If you are going to bring socialism to America, you got to find the Superman. Superman, the man of steel, truth, justice, and the American way. That is what we need to find in the American people. That is what we need to find in the American people, if there's any hope. That is what we need to find. We need the American people to become Supermanists, to reject Lex Luthor Bezos, to reject the Ku Klux Klan and the Nazis, to embrace the Soviet Union and Russia and China as their friends, to embrace the working people, the people of Smallville, Kansas, to be mild-mannered, to just want to live a normal, wholesome life, to oppose violence, but to see that there's a job that needs to be done, and when there's no one else who can do it, it looks like a job for Superman. That is what we need to be communicating to the American people. We need to find the Superman in the American people. And we need to find it now. That is our responsibility. If there's ever been a moment where it's been necessary and urgent to find the Superman in the American people, it is now. And I don't want to find the Batman in the American people. We'll talk about that too. But I'm going to put these super chats down. And thank you. Got Gabby. All right. Batman appeals to a darker side of the American people. You know, Batman is damaged. Batman's got trauma. His parents were murdered in front of him. He was raised by a butler. Batman is angry and brooding. He's a bachelor. He's never had a wife or a girlfriend. He lives by himself, brooding in his dark mansion all the time, angry at the world. He talks like this. He's got this evil voice. He's obsessed with weapons, all kinds of crazy weapon technology. He thinks the police aren't doing enough. He hates criminals. Batman is everything you don't want to be. Don't be Batman. Don't be Batman. Batman is George Zimmerman. Batman is the Ku Klux Klan. Batman is wokeism. The desire for vengeance. The isolated, brooding, contemptuous, lonely, self-important, vengeful person. You don't want to be Batman. Batman is everything we're struggling not to be. Batman isn't out among the people trying to fit in. He's a billionaire living in a mansion. And even though he's got more money than he could ever imagine, he sits there in his mansion brooding. The world is just unfair to him. He wants to take revenge on somebody. And he's got all kinds of weapons. And he's got this complicated, expensive costume, and he's going to go find some criminals and make them pay. He's going to punish people. He's a vigilante. He's going to take revenge. And after he takes his revenge, he's going to go back to his mansion all by himself and brood some more and resent the world some more and relive the painful trauma of how his parents were killed and fixate on his hatred and his revenge. Batman is everything you don't want to be. You don't want to be Batman. Batman is the evil, negative archetype. He's the opposite of Superman. Batman is everything that's wrong with America. He's a dark, traumatized, resentful, lonely, angry, vengeful, brooding, bitter person. Batman is not what you want to be. Batman is everything you don't want to be. And there's way too much Batman these days. I see Batman everywhere. We're all sitting at home on our computers, not talking to anybody. We're all sitting there fixating on somebody who said something we disagree with, or somebody who did something wrong, or someone who's got something that we don't have. We're all brooding alone in our resentment. We're all isolated, sitting in front of our computer screens like Batman sitting in front of his fireplace. We're all reliving the pain and the trauma of the past, and reliving and re-traumatizing ourselves while we sit there brooding and fantasizing about revenge. You don't want to be Batman. Batman is everything wrong with America right now. I see Batman everywhere. Batman on the right, Batman on the left, Batman among the old people, Batman among the young people. Batman is what you don't want to be. You don't want to be Batman. Batman is not what we need in this time. We don't need Batman. We need Superman. We need Superman more than ever. We need the Superman of the American people to come forward and defeat the Batman. That's what we need, because Batman is everywhere right now. Batman is everywhere. We don't need that. We don't need Batman. We need Superman. We need those optimistic, hopeful feelings you get from Superman. We need Superman's humble attitude. We need Superman's selflessness, Superman's kindness and compassion, Superman's sense of duty and responsibility, Superman's humbleness and humility, Superman's, opposition to violence, Superman's love for the people of the world and the people of his own country. We need Superman. We don't need Batman. So, in addition to saying what we need is Superman, we also need to get rid of Batman, because Batman is everything we don't want to be. A resentful, lonely, brooding, vengeful person. We don't want to be Batman. And you don't feel good after you watch a Batman movie, right? You go watch one of those Christopher Reeve classic 1980s Superman movies, you feel good after you watch it. But you go and watch Batman, especially one of the new ones where he talks like this. Oh, it just leaves you with an feeling, right? It's supposed to be men who like them. I'm a man. I don't like those Batman movies. I just feel, I don't like Batman movies, right? The focus is revenge. The focus is people's ugly side. It's not good. It's not good. Not good at all. Not good at all. Superman fights against billionaires. He stands up for the people against the billionaires. Batman is a billionaire, and he fights against the people who he considers to be ungrateful, who he considers to be rabble and inferior. You don't want to be. You do not want to be. You don't want to be Batman. You want to be Superman. Superman encompasses the ideals of the Popular Front. Superman encompasses the ideals of the Roosevelt administration. Superman encompasses the ideals of hope and progress and struggling for justice. Batman, on the other hand, encompasses the dark pessimism of fascism and resentment and the elite, and it's everything you don't want to be. And I've been thinking about that a lot. These kind of things are important. This could be, someone could be watching this and just say, this is a silly conversation, Caleb. This is just a completely silly, off-the-wall conversation. Caleb, I got news for you. Neither Batman or Superman are real. Okay, now are Superman and Batman in the room right now, Caleb? Now, Batman is not real. Neither is Superman. So maybe you need to educate your audience about, real things, Caleb. Well, I am educating my audience about real things. I am. Because even though these are two fictional characters, they represent parts of the American soul. They represent parts of the American soul, parts of the American spirit, and they're very real. Batman is everywhere. Superman is everywhere. And we ought to have a conversation about it. We ought to have a conversation about it because we need to be real about this. And honestly, it's not, this isn't even a left-right conversation. There's right-wing Batman-ism and there's left-wing Batman-ism. There's right-wing Superman-ism, there's left-wing Superman-ism. This is a war between two mindsets. And don't tell me that Superman doesn't have trauma, because he does. Superman, from the time he was a baby, has realized he's not the same species as everyone on the planet. He's from another planet. His parents are not his parents. He just randomly showed up, fell from the sky. He doesn't fit in with other people. And he's had these powers he's had to hide from other people his whole life. Superman does his best to remain optimistic. But, you know, the Lois Lane stuff ain't going to work out. And he's a clumsy reporter working for the Daily Planet, small town guy in the big city. He's really bothered by violence. Other people can tolerate violence. You know that? Other people, you know, they see a fist fight or something, whatever. But Superman, part of what makes him different is that he has pain. It pains him when he sees people hurt each other. Superman has this special empathy that other people do not have, and he carries it almost like a burden. If you notice this is part of the Superman comics. Part of the Christopher Reeve movies is that, you know, Superman is bothered by violence. Superman is bothered by nuclear weapons. Superman is bothered by war. Superman is bothered by bullying and cruelty to other people. And other people can just kind of look away when they see that stuff. But Superman, it aches at his soul. Don't pretend, you know, Batman wants to tell you the reason he's Batman is because of his pain. It's what I've been through. Superman has his own demons, mind you. Superman has his own demons. He might have superpowers that Batman does not have, but he has his own demons. Superman has suffered. Why do you think he has a fortress of solitude? This ice castle that he runs away to just to get away from people because the world is just too much. He has a sensitivity to violence. He has a sensitivity to humans' cruelty and indifference to other people. And every so often, he just can't take it anymore. And he runs away to the Arctic where he just hides in the ice because he just can't take it anymore. Superman has had a hard time too, but it's not a question. It's not a question of whether or not Superman has pain or whether or not Superman has trauma. It's a question of how he chooses to face it. Because Batman chooses to face his trauma alone in a brooding, anti-human, isolated, vengeful, dark way. But Superman, on the other hand, he chooses to deal with his pain by reaching out to other people. Superman chooses to deal with his pain with love. Superman, he wants to connect with other people. He wants to love other people. He wants to forgive other people. He wants to know human beings better. He wants to rid the world of nuclear weapons. He wants to bring America and the Soviet Union together. He wants to stop racial and ethnic bigotry. Superman, despite having his own pain and his own suffering, despite sometimes having to run off to the fortress of solitude. Whatever pain he's had, he's decided to be an optimist. He's decided to be hopeful. He's decided to try and do good, to use the powers that he has to do good for the world. That's what Superman has decided to do. We need to find the Superman in the American people. That's what we need to do. We need to find the Superman in the American people. We need to find the Clark Kent, the man from Kansas, the man of steel, truth, justice, and the American way. Look up at the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Superman, and we need to find the Superman in the American people. That is the only hope. That's what we need. That's what we need more than anything. Superman-ism and anti-Batman-ism. And that is my opening remarks for you tonight. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. Let's start doing the roll call. Names and locations. Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations. Names and locations. Who's with us? Who is with us? Who is with us? So we got Tatiana in Fort Worth, Sydney in Australia, or George is in Sydney, Australia. Lawrence Johnson in Chicago. We've got Zeno April, and Commissioner of the Socialists. Zach Brunch in Richmond, Virginia. Mohsen from Iran. Kieran from New Jersey. Patch in Arizona. Chester in England. Bob Troy in New York. Chris in Salt Lake City. Tristan in Maryland. Heidi in Edinburgh, Scotland. Yonatan Mahari, greetings to the chat. Walter in Pennsylvania. I'm seeing new names today. It's probably because I'm streaming at a different time than I usually do. We got Cape May in New Jersey. Sherry Spector, welcome, 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 welcome. Good times, names and locations. Sherry Spector, welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Names and locations. Temple City, California. Lucha in Singapore. Briggy in Pennsylvania. Wow, welcome to the chat. Mariah in North Carolina. Superman is the one you marry. Well, there you go. Worked out for Lois Lane, I think. At least one of the stories, at least one of the versions. Jenny in Cincinnati. Welcome. Seneca in South Carolina. There we go. Johnson County, North Carolina. That was truly an epic fireside ramble. We do our best here, folks. We do our best. But tweet this out. Share it. Let more people see these conversations, right? You know, the more the merrier. Tweet this out. Bring people here, right? I mean, I'm glad you liked it, right? I'll just keep doing what I do. Luke from Stafford, England, loves the streams. Always watching, says Sherry Spector. Welcome, Sherry. So good to have you. Names and locations, folks. Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations. Names and locations. Who's with us tonight? Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. We got Rice from Adelaide, Australia is watching. Says, hey, Maddie. Hey, Mima. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad to be here with all of you. So glad to be here with all of you. Names and locations. We got Donnie Wallace in Johnson County, North Carolina. Good stuff. Good stuff. So, folks, I mentioned two songs in my opening remarks tonight. I mentioned two different songs. So I feel like since probably neither of those songs are copyrighted, I can play them. They're both two communist songs. The first one is the American English version of the Internationale, which is not widely sung. People know the English version, English, British version. People know the Billy Bragg words, which I just can't stand. I can't stand them. But here is the standard American English version of the Internationale. It has that second verse that I tell people is just so important. It's the second verse is what I'm all about. Free the spirit from the cell, decide our duty. Listen to the American English version of the Internationale, right? This is This is good stuff.
Arise, you prisoners of salvation, arise, you wretched of the earth, for justice under condemnation, for a better world since birth. No more traditions change or bind us, arise, you slave, no more in thrall. The earth shall rise on new foundation, we have been lost, we shall be all. 'Tis the final conflict, ready stand in his place. The international Soviet shall be the human race. 'Tis the final conflict, ready stand in his place. The international Soviet shall be the human race. We once looked condescending saviors to rule us from a judgment hall. We were possessed not for their flavors, let us consult for all. To make the sleepless watch his booty, to free the spirit from your cell. We must ourselves decide our duty, we must decide and do it well. 'Tis the final conflict, ready stand in his place. The international Soviet shall be the human race. 'Tis the final conflict, ready stand in his place. The international Soviet shall be the human race.
All right, I am going to do that second verse one more time because it is that was the whole point of my opening remarks. So here we go. The second verse one more time. To free the spirit from the cell, each must decide their duty. Here we go.
The human race. We once looked condescending saviors to rule us from a judgment hall. We were possessed not for their flavors, let us consult for all. To make the sleepless watch his booty, to free the spirit from your cell. We must ourselves decide our duty, we must decide and do it well. 'Tis the final conflict, ready stand in his place. The international Soviet shall be the human race. 'Tis the final conflict, ready stand in his place. The international Soviet shall be the human race.
All right, folks. That I felt like playing that since I mentioned it. And I also mentioned a Woody Guthrie song, You Got to Go Down and Join the Union. So I'm waiting for that song to download. We'll play that song, and then I'll start answering your super chats. So if there's more things, we got 6 super chats to go through, but if there are more things you want me to mention in the second half of our show, please send them in. You know, the more the merrier. But now we're going to Go Down and Join the Union for yourself. Another song emphasizing that you have to make a choice, that you have to decide what you can do. Here we go. This is Go Down and Join the Union for yourself. So here we go.
And this is about 400 different songs, you know, with this melody. Wrong key though. You gotta go down and join the union. You gotta join it for yourself. Ain't nobody can join it for you. You gotta go down and join the union for yourself. Brothers, go down and join the union. You gotta join it for yourself. Ain't nobody here can join it for you. You gotta go down and join the union for yourself. Sisters, go down and join the union. She's gotta go and join it for herself. Ain't nobody here can join it for her. She's gotta go down and join the union for herself. I'm going down to join the union. I'm going to join it for myself. Ain't nobody here can join it for me. I'm going down to join the union by myself. We're going down to join the union. We're going down to join it for ourselves. Ain't nobody can join it for us. We're going down to join the union for ourselves. Though the world be rough and mighty, and the hills you sing and high, we will sing it as we go by. And we'll join as one big union by and by. You gotta join and join the union. You gotta join it for yourself. Ain't nobody can join it for you. You gotta go down and join the union for yourself.
You gotta go down and join the union for yourself. Nobody can join it for you. You gotta go down and join the union by yourself. Or, as the International says, each must themselves decide their duty. They must decide and do it well, right? And only you can decide to join the Center for Political Innovation. But, only you can make that decision, but people who do it don't regret it. The CPI is an organization, and we are building, and we've got a whole summer of events ahead of us. So go ahead and sign up. Only you can join the Center for Political Innovation. Become a member today. We need more members. We're doing great. Go and join us while you're at it. But we did have one more request. Someone recommended that I play the Woody Guthrie Jesus Christ song. So why not, right? One of my favorite Woody Guthrie songs in honor of Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ was a man who traveled through the land, a hard-working man and brave. He said to the rich, give your goods to the poor, but they laid Jesus Christ in his grave. Jesus was a man, a carpenter by hand, his followers true and brave. One dirty little coward called Judas Iscariot has laid Jesus Christ in his grave. He went to the preacher, he went to the sheriff, he told them all the same. Sell all your jewelry and give it to the poor, but they laid Jesus Christ in his grave. When Jesus came to town, all the working folk around believed what he did say. The bankers and the preachers, they nailed him on a cross, then they laid Jesus Christ in his grave. The poor working people, they followed him around, they sang and they shouted gay. The cops and the soldiers, they nailed him in the air, and they laid Jesus Christ in his grave. Well, the people held their breath when they heard about his death, and everybody wondered why. It was the landlord and the soldiers that he hired to nail Jesus Christ in the sky. This song was written in New York City of rich man, preacher and slave. But if Jesus was to preach like he preached at Galilee, they would lay Jesus Christ in his grave.
Classic, right? What a night this is. We're having a great stream talking about Superman-ism versus Batman-ism, talking about peace on the Korean Peninsula. This is a great stream. I'm having a great time. I got my energy going. We're earlier than usual. This is not another late night stream. This is pretty early, actually, for us. We've been starting at 10 or 11 lately, but tonight we decided to do it earlier, so here we are. Great stuff, folks. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. I cannot emphasize hitting the subscribe button enough. They are unsubscribing people. I mean, the algorithms, it is unbelievable. It's like, some stuff is going on. I mean, people have been telling me they're getting unsubscribed. They have to resubscribe. It's bull. It's a bunch of bull honky. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're subscribed. Lex Luthor Bezos is not doing us any favors. Neither is Eric Schmidt. So, there's that. I do let people know that if you want to influence how this conversation goes, because you are watching this live, if you would like to influence how the conversation goes, by all means, send us a super chat. Send a super chat. We got 6 super chats so far. Most people who watch this are going to watch this the next day. They're going to watch it afterwards. But you are one of the elite, one of the special elite who is going to watch this live. So because of that, I urge you to influence the conversation. Talk about what it is that you would like to talk about. And send us a super chat. Send us a super chat. That would be awesome. We got 6 super chats to answer so far. So I'm going to start answering them. But if there's something you want me to talk about, shoot me another super chat. Here we go. Here's another one. Okay. There you go. All questions welcome. Occasionally I will get a question that I wouldn't answer. Someone last night asked me about, I believe someone sent a super chat asking me what I thought of people that were sexually aroused by feet. I did not think that was appropriate for this kind of stream. Every so often I get a question that I can't answer, but this one, I'll answer that. Why not? I have no problem answering that. All questions are welcome. But every so often you get an inappropriate question. That's a totally appropriate question. I can answer that. Good question, Cam. Good question, right? I can answer that. So there you go. But yeah, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. And so now I'm going to start answering people's super chat questions. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I am going to do it. I am going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to start answering people's super chat questions. How do you talk to people about how homelessness, addiction, isn't a personal failing or caused by Purdue, but the result of a wider societal failure? That's the question. Well, look, the way many people are trained to think about things is that they're trained to personalize everything. Right? And this is how a lot of people learn to hate themselves. They learn to, at the same time, blame themselves for everything. Is that people, and it's a very American way of looking at things. And some of the self-help stuff feeds into that, honestly. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. Some of the self-help stuff, it's all just a matter of, choices you've made, right? It's a big part of the conservative mindset, and it is important to take personal responsibility. It is important to admit that your own choices have had an impact on you. But when you look at Los Angeles and the thousands and thousands and thousands of homeless people on Skid Row out there, you want to look at that, you got to say that, look, all of those people being out there, it's not just that they all just made dumb choices. I mean, a lot of them did. But, you know, if that many people are making choices that make them homeless, we got a little bit of an issue now, don't we? And what about, many people point out, what about people who can make bad choices and don't become homeless? You know, many members of the Bush family had issues with drugs, and you don't see them homeless on the street because they're related to presidents. You know, George W. Bush got caught with cocaine. He didn't go to prison for it and have a criminal record and become homeless. He became the president of the United States. There was a member of his family, similar situation. And that, you know, in good times, all people, first of all, let's just be real. Everybody makes mistakes. I've made mistakes. You've made mistakes. Whoever you are watching this, you have made a mistake. Yes, you have. Don't give me that. You have. You know you have. Everyone watching this has made a mistake. However, when society is deteriorating and when you're entering a crisis, the consequences of mistakes get much more serious. You know, I mean, that's just a fact, right? Used to be that, you know, someone didn't even have to have a college degree. And they didn't even have to have a high school degree, and they could get a good paying factory job with a house and a car. I mean, it used to be they could support a family of 4 on the one single income of a factory worker in the United States. Nowadays, if somebody makes a mistake, somebody struggles with addiction, or somebody has a mental health problem, which, you know, people have all throughout history, people have had them. The consequence isn't just that they lose their job or they flunk out of school or they have a fight with their family and I mean, the consequences are much more serious when the economy is bad, right? And many people have pointed this out. Among lower income people, things that just happen have way bigger devastating consequences. You know, one of the things that happens, many people have pointed out here in New York City, right? That, you know, if you jump a subway turnstile, all right, generally, now things have changed since the pandemic, et cetera, but generally, you know, it used to be when I first moved to this city, if you didn't pay your subway fare, if you jump a turnstile, and the police catch you, they arrest you, they take you to jail, and you're spending 26 hours in jail. Well, for some rich kid, you know, he spends 26 hours in jail, he goes before a judge, you know, he has to do a day of community service, not a big deal. For a working class person, they jump the turnstile, they get on the subway, they no called, no showed to their job. Right? Maybe they try to call their job from jail, but no guarantee that you can do that. So they jump a turnstile, they lose their job, right? You work in the service sector, right? You work as a store clerk, or you work in a restaurant or something like that, and you jump a turnstile and the police arrest you for it, and you're going away for 26 hours until you get arraigned by a judge, before they take you before a judge. You know, you're going to lose your job. Those are much more serious consequences than, you know, some rich kid. Okay, he goes to jail for 26 hours. It's unpleasant. He sits in the holding cell. You know, it smells like urine. You know, he doesn't sleep well one night. He goes before the judge. It's kind of embarrassing. Now it's on his record. You know, he might have to do some community service, but it's not the end of the world. But a low income person, they jump the subway turnstile, they could lose their job. You know, if they have children, they could lose custody of their children because their parent just disappeared for a few hours, right? I mean, the kid comes home from school, the parents aren't there, children's services get called, they could lose their child. They could lose custody of their child, all just because they jumped a subway turnstile. DJ design. So for lower income people, the consequences are much more serious. And when the economy is bad, The consequences are much more serious, and that's what people don't realize. Everyone makes mistakes. Now, obviously, some people make more mistakes than others. Some people have more mental health issues than others. Some people have more issues with addiction than others. People make mistakes, but if you are of a lower income, if you come from a less privileged background, right? If you are a working class person, if you're a low income person, the consequences for jumping over the subway turnstile, which, yes, did you make that choice? Yes, you chose to jump over the subway turnstile. But the consequences, a low-income person could lose their job, could lose custody of their children, could have their children taken away by children's services. I mean, the consequences for a poor person jumping the subway turnstile and a rich person jumping the subway turnstile technically might be the same, but it has a devastating impact on the life of a low-income person. And for a wealthy person, it's not fun, but it's not the end of the world. And these are the kind of things we need to acknowledge. So, you say, well, if that person who jumped a turnstile and loses their job, loses their apartment, is out on the street homeless, you say, well, they made a choice. Yes. But if they'd been in a different circumstance, if the economy had been stronger, the choice they made wouldn't have had the same result, right? And that's what you need to understand, right? That the other thing, though, and I think this is important, it's not simply an economic factor. We saw the tent cities that sprung up across America. 2008, the financial crisis happened, home foreclosures, the housing bubble burst. I was in Detroit. I saw it, the tent cities, people, with Skid Row, there's a lot of homeless encampments, etc. That's part of it. That's a big factor. But the other thing to remember is many people do say that, look, mental health is a big part of homelessness. There are some people that the reason that they can't get their shit together to hold a job, the reason they can't get their shit together to get into an apartment to live in is due to mental health. You got to look at the statistics right now. Look at the suicide rate. Look at the rates of mental health. We are having a mental health crisis. The pandemic, which isolated people from each other, again, one of the main ways people keep themselves healthy is by feeding off of each other's energy. The pandemic shot up mental health problems. The suicide rate drastically increased. It was a mental health disaster. On top of that, social media is really bad for children's brains. This phone culture is really bad for people. And the mental health problem, we're having a way bigger mental health situation on a society-wide level, right? And that this is a cop-out, right? People who don't, it's like, I've seen this my whole life. People just don't want to think about things on a macro scale. They just want to say, you made a choice. You made a choice. It's like, yes, people do make choices, right? The anti-feminists will say, well, women make different choices than men. Yes, they do. But these choices don't exist in a vacuum. And you have to remember that no one's perfect, right? Look at our presidents, right? I mean, Joe Biden plagiarized his college thesis. Right? I mean, he committed plagiarism, and he's now the president of the United States. There are people who, that could be a choice that somebody made, that they made the choice. They committed plagiarism. They got caught at their school, and they got booted out of college, and their life is over. Well, Joe Biden, he committed plagiarism. He got caught. He, got some academic thing, and he became president of the United States. Obviously, two different people could have made the same bad choice, but it would have drastically different consequences. And in some cases, the consequence itself might be the same, but because they're from a different social strata, it has different implications. So there's that you have to keep in mind. And that because overall living conditions are going down, 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 the conditions for people are becoming much bigger than they used to be as a group, right? It used to be, yes, for lower income folks, it's always been bad, but incomes as a rule are dropping as society. So the consequences are getting bigger. So more people are becoming homeless, etc. That's a factor. Plus, people always say, well, mental health is part of homelessness. Right. And mental health, suicide rate, mental health. I mean, we're having a mental health crisis in this country spawned by pandemic isolation, spawned by social media, spawned by liberalism, ultimately. The lack of ideology, the lack of belief. People don't believe in truth anymore. People don't believe that right and wrong exists. Human beings need ideology. Ideology is like when you're driving down the road, you know where you're going, You know where you came from. You know how you're getting there. Ideology, that's what ideology is. It gives you a place to go on the map. You say, I am this, I am going here, I came from here. That's what ideology does for you. And when you take ideology away from people, right? Every society in history has invented an ideology, a religion, a political system, a perspective. Every society in history has had an ideology. But postmodernism says that all ideologies are bad. All ideologies are bad. There is no truth. That's what postmodernism says. And as a result of that, we have millions of American youth in particular who are growing up being told, you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going, you don't know how you're getting there, and you're on your own. Does life really have any meaning? And it's messing with their heads. It is absolutely messing with their heads. So, I mean, even the mental health aspect. So there you go. That's my answer. And this next question, God is incomprehensible. Yes, I would agree. God is incomprehensible. And I know if my good friend Gavin is watching here, he has very different religious views than I do, but I don't think you can prove or disprove the existence of God. I don't think you can make logical arguments for God's existence. I think God exists on a spiritual plane, and some people are able to connect with God and some people are not. Right. And I do believe that throughout history, we have seen mass movements that tap into spiritual power. I do believe, in Jesus Christ, etc. But my view of religion is that, yes, God is incomprehensible. I am not, I will tell you that I believe in God, but I'm not going to go around arguing with people who don't, because I don't think belief in God is a rational or religious thing. I think that you either do or you don't. And if you believe in it, it's because you connected with other people and with something in the universe in a spiritual way that you have to experience. No one can make you believe in God. I don't believe someone can draw a mathematical formula and convince you to believe in God. I think that it is a matter of attaching to something deeper, right? So there you go. That is my response to the person who said God is incomprehensible. So that would be my response to that. So the next super chat question. I should try to do an interview with Dennis Rodman. I would love that. Yeah, I would have Dennis Rodman on here to talk about peace on the Korean Peninsula, North Korea, in a heartbeat. If anyone can help me get Dennis Rodman to come on these streams, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. I am for that. I am in favor of that. Ding, 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 ding. Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sirree, Bob. I would do that in a heartbeat. So there we go. There we go. All right. All right. What are you looking forward to this year? Well, first thing I'm looking forward to is our workshop coming up in Missouri. That's going to be pretty awesome. That'll be June 24th, 25th, and 26th. Join the CPI if you'd like to come. It's going to be a great weekend workshop we're doing in Missouri near St. Louis. It's going to be awesome. So join CPI. It's generally a members-only event, members and close friends and guests. So if you can make it, we would love to have you there. And then I'm also looking forward to the event we're going to be doing in July. The date is tentative. It should be set soon with 2 lawyers. We're going to have 2 lawyers, maybe even 3 lawyers today. Talk to another lawyer today. It might be 3 lawyers, but 2 lawyers for sure. We're going to have an event talking about the U.S. legal system, how it unfairly targets low-income people. Details of that event are coming soon. That's going to be in early July. It's going to be a great forum that we are doing. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a CPI event in New York City. I'm also looking forward to, it looks like September, again, not set, but it looks like in September, we're going to have an event in Portland, Oregon. So we're getting around. This organization is on the road. We're marching ahead. So there you go. If you are interested in, in getting involved in this kind of stuff, Join the Center for Political Innovation because we are marching ahead with this. We're doing everything we can to support the Uhuru Movement. We are pushing peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. We're publishing books and putting on seminars. We're pushing anti-war messages, having anti-war events, and we're doing important stuff. So if you want to be involved in that, join CPI. Go to the website, cpiusa.org, and become a member today. So there you go. You did a documentary that included a clip of Barack Obama telling Uhuru protesters that if they didn't like his policies, he should run for office himself. Can you play that in the live stream? Let me see if I've still got that clip. I might still have it here on my computer. Let me see. That would be a good clip to play. The Uhuru Movement when they protested Obama, right? I did include that clip. It's a hard video to find. You know, the gosh darn search engine on YouTube, you can't find what you're looking for. And someone did a really good job. They dug up the clip of the Uhuru Movement protesting Barack Obama. And I've got that clip. You know, I've shown it before, and I showed it on the video essay that I did. I may just have to download that video essay in order to show that clip. Let me see if I think that may be what I have to do. Let me do a quick search on my computer to see if I already have the clip. And if I don't, then that is what we will have to do. But that's okay. We can do that, right? Because that's an important clip, right? Because now the claim, the allegation they make is that somehow Uhuru running for office was a conspiracy, right? That is the allegation that they make, that their running for office was a conspiracy from Russia. And when we have video of the Uhuru Movement, you know, being told by Obama. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Yep, we got it. We got it. Obama challenged by Uhurus. That's the name of the video. All right. Yeah, we got it. We got it. We got it. We got it. John, we got it. We got it. So we'll show that clip. We'll show this clip of Barack Obama being challenged by the Uhuru Movement when he ran for office. This is Obama challenged by Uhurus in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Gentlemen, please welcome Jeff Blake and the next President of the United States, Senator Barack Obama.
Thank you. Thank you, St. Petersburg. Thank you, everybody. In recent years, we've learned that basic truth, that you can't have a thriving Wall Street if you don't have a thriving Main Street. And we've had somebody in office who doesn't seem to care about what's going on Main Street. And special interests put their thumbs on the scales and distort the free market and work their get tax loopholes and tax havens in the tax code, then everybody suffers. And when our government fails, hold on a second, what's happening there? Hold on a second. And when our That's all right. That's all right. Listen. Excuse me. And when our... Hey. Hold on a second. You'll have a chance to answer your question, but you don't want to disrupt the whole meeting. Just be courteous, that's all. All you got to do is be courteous, that's all. Just be courteous and you'll have a chance to make your statement. Just relax, that's all. Just relax, you'll have a chance. All right, what was I talking about? Now, I'm announcing a two-part emergency plan to help struggling families make ends meet. First part of my plan is a $1,000 emergency energy rebate that would go out to families this fall to cover rising prices, not only in gas, but also in home fuel. Now, the second part of my plan is $50 billion in stimulus to help jumpstart job creation and help local communities that are struggling due to our economic downturn.
Why is it that you have not had the ability to not one time speak to the interests and even speak on behalf of the oppressed and exploited African community or black community in this country?
On each of these issues that you mentioned, I have spoken out, and I've spoken out forcefully. These are issues I've worked on for decades. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to always satisfy the way you guys want these issues framed, and I understand it. Which gives you the option of voting for somebody else. It gives you the option to run for office yourself. But those are all options.
Can you please speak to those family members and those service members who are decorated war veterans who are coming back wounded, injured, and have no recourse?
We owe a sacred duty to our veterans to treat them as well as they've treated us, to serve them as well as they've served us. No more homeless veterans. We will give them housing. We will give them substance abuse programs. We will give them mental health.
So yeah, you saw it there. Barack Obama told the Uhuru guy to run for office yourself. So, you know, all they're being charged with is doing exactly what Barack Obama told them to do. He said, you can run for office yourself. There you go. They did. You guys can run for office yourself. They did. So what? Right? Now they're being charged for it by the U.S. Department of Justice. They're calling them Russian agents. They're trying to put them in prison for 10 years for running for office themselves. Hands off Uhuru. Go to handsoffyuhuru.org. We got to do everything we can to support them right now. What's being done to that organization is absolutely criminal. Next question. Are you familiar with the animated version of Superman the Red Sun, in which I have read the comic. I have not watched the movie. I've heard the movie is pretty anti-communist and such, but I have actually read the comic. I have the abbreviated book version of the comic somewhere. And I've read the comic Superman the Red Sun. It's clever. It's a clever premise. You know, I didn't find it to be that amusing. I mean, it was amusing to some degree or other, but you know, pretty anti-communist. And also I just didn't, I don't know. I mean, there was no scene that particularly moved me. I mean, it was just kind of, okay, clever premise, Superman in the Soviet Union rather than in the USA. We get it. All right. Amusing. I mean, that's really all I thought it was. You know, I mean, it was amusing. And I never watched the animated cartoon version of it. Do people recommend it? I heard it was pretty awful. So there you go. So now Cam is asking me just a personal cue, and he means question, if you don't mind. Curious to know what your wife thinks about your working at RT/Daily Chats. No need to answer too personal. Well, I mean, I don't know. My wife enjoys me paying the rent, you know, paying our bills, you know, having employment. She thinks that's a pretty good thing to do. She would prefer that her husband be employed rather than unemployed. So she seems to be good on those terms. I've had this job for quite some time. You know, it's not like I just started working at RT. I've been working at RT since 2016. Before that, I was with Press TV. So, you know, I mean, our whole marriage, I've been working. So, you know, she's not urged me to become unemployed anytime lately. So I think she's cool with me working. As far as the daily chats, I will say, you know, we needed to move. You know, we moved, I think in October. It needed to happen. You know, we really needed to move. We're in a 1-bedroom. You guys remember when I would just sit in bed and do these streams and just talking to my phone? That was bad, right? Because it was like, you know, I would either sit in front of the bookshelf in the living room and then my wife couldn't watch TV, or I would go into the bedroom and we were crammed. We were in a 1-bedroom. Well, we moved. Now we're in a 2-bedroom, you know, and you know, that's not cheap, but it was necessary. We really needed to move. We'd been putting off moving for a long time, and we really needed to get out of the 1-bedroom we were in because it wasn't going to work. Right. We were in a 1-bedroom, and it made it very hard with me streaming every day. Right. During the pandemic, I started streaming every day, and me streaming every day made it very difficult for us to live in a 1-bedroom. You know, people, you know, now I have this room that I'm in, which basically functions as a home studio. I do my RT lives here. I do my broadcast here in front of the bookshelf. We're looking to maybe expand it into kind of a different home studio. There's some different proposals on the table about how to do that, but it's just a room right now that I use for working purposes, right? I have my bookshelf in here, and I use this room for working, and that's what it's for. And in this room, I work, and it's a good thing to do. So there you go. There you go. All righty. Yeah, there you go. How do you respond to Marxists cannot believe in both materialism and in non-material beings making things happen in the world? Well, look, first things first, I'm just not a straight up materialist. You are correct about classic straight up Marxian materialism denies the existence of any spiritual power, of really any psychological power, right? Classic materialism says that a brain, you only think because you have this piece of matter between your skull, and it's called a brain, right? Thought is inseparable from matter that thinks. That's classic materialism, right? I am not an adherent of classic Marxist materialism. Now, I understand dialectical and historical materialism, and I think it's a very useful guide. It's probably the biggest influence on my thinking, but I am at the point, where I said years ago, a few years ago, 3-4 years ago, I made a video and I was explaining what dialectical materialism is. And I said, I don't believe in it. I'm not a strict dialectical materialist. I do believe in God. I do believe in spiritual power. I've seen it evidenced in my own life. And I am not a strict Marxist materialist. That said, I do believe that dialectic and struggle is a big part of human history. The Hegelian dialectic and, these things, you can learn a lot from that with that kind of understanding. And my way of understanding the world and contradiction, etc. That stuff is a very big influence on me, no doubt. At the end of the day, I do believe in religious things. And at this point, the global Marxist movement largely does. The head of the Russian Communist Party is a Orthodox Christian named Gennady Zhuganov. In Nicaragua, the slogan that's painted everywhere is Christianity, socialism, and solidarity. Venezuela, Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro are both Roman Catholic. Christianity was a big part of their transition to socialism. Another thing that's worth pointing out, Fidel Castro accepted Christ in his final years. That he wrote that he was a Christian. He had confession with the Pope. He met and had spiritual meetings with Orthodox priests as well. And Fidel Castro, in his biography, he said that he was a Christian. He said that in the sense, in his worldview was rooted in Christianity. There's an actual quote from Fidel Castro in one of his autobiographies where he says that he actually did accept Christ and become a Christian. Fidel Castro was a Christian, right? Now he wasn't for most of his career, and he brutally persecuted Christians at one point in his life. In the 70s, 60s, and 70s, he did persecute Christians. But you know what? So did the Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul killed many Christians, persecuted Christians brutally. But then he changed his mind. Fidel Castro in the 1990s, he had a religious conversion, right? He met with the Pope. He welcomed the Pope to Cuba. He also met with Russian Orthodox clergy. He started quoting the Bible. And, Cuba has really changed in regards to religion. There's still a lot of atheism in Cuba, but Fidel Castro became religious. And that, look, in the Arab world, Islam and socialism walk hand in hand. There are secular movements, right? Gaddafi in Libya was considered a secular leader, but his socialism was Islamic socialism. The socialism put forward in the Green Book by Gaddafi is Islamic socialism. Ba'athist Arab socialism that they have in Syria, they had in Iraq. It very much, even though it was a secular movement that allowed for religious freedom, believed in a secular state, it very much, the Ba'ath ideology considers Islam to be part of the genius of Arabism, and argues that Islam has a special place. The Syrian constitution says that even though it is a secular state, it gives a special emphasis on Sunni Islam as being a guide for Syrian Ba'athist Arab socialism. And there were similar statements in Iraq, and Iran, right? Iran, they are not a socialist society. They say they are neither socialist or capitalist. They have an Islamic system, they call it, not capitalism, but Islam. But they have state central planning. They have an overwhelming majority of the economy is state-run. They have central planning. The biggest economic entity in the country is the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The government itself, the Islamic Revolutionary Government, considers itself to be part of the wave of anti-colonial revolutions that came after World War II. They have big pictures of Malcolm X and Che Guevara and such, and that their anti-imperialism is a big part of their identity. So, for example, in Iran, again, they don't, they don't call themselves Marxists at all, but their anti-capitalism and anti-imperialism is very Islamic and religious. And, China is a little bit of a different situation because China, you have to remember, there wasn't like a unified religion for all of China, right? China wasn't a Catholic country. It wasn't a Muslim country. China had a lot of different local regional practices, Taoism, ancestor worship, what people might call animism. There were different regional practices. There was the Confucian philosophy and theory of the state, but China did not have a unified religion at the time of the revolution. So China is a little bit of a different situation, but even China has really improved its relationship with religious people. And there's a Chinese Association of Religions that is sympathetic to the Communist Party. So it's complicated, right? But I would argue that classical, pure Marxism that says there is no God, that says, pure 100% dialectical materialism, I would argue that that is not going to return. That was necessary. That's what got us the Soviet Union. That's what got us Mao and China and having its revolution. And that's what got us a wave of anti-colonial liberation struggles. But even in the 70s and 80s, things were starting to change with Baathism, with the Islamic Revolution of Iran, with liberation theology in Latin America. Things were starting to change, right? That was one stage, right? That these countries that were breaking free from feudalism, they had to just wipe the slate clean, smash the old institutions that existed, that they associated with feudalism. But that was one stage. We've gotten past that stage. The world is constantly changing. The world is constantly changing. And that the energy, and this is important, the energy, that destructive vandal energy that was a big part of the anti-religious side of communism, that is now primarily being used coming out of Western capitalism. That's coming out of Facebook and Twitter. That's the color revolution apparatus. That's the George Soros go out and protest it. That's wokeism. Communist countries don't sound that way anymore. They're not trying to spread communism all over the world. They're not trying to tear things down and spread chaos. They're trying to do the opposite. They're trying to do the opposite. They're trying to have stability and in the face of the global market. So it's important. The other thing, and this is an important point to make, one book that really changed my life, a really good book that I read, not a Marxist book, is called On Heroes and Hero Worship and the Heroic in History by Thomas Carlyle. And Thomas Carlyle was a Scottish intellectual. He wrote this very, very good book about what is a hero, what are the heroic in history. It's just an amazing, beautiful book that he wrote. In that book, he talks about why did so many prophets throughout the ancient world smash idols, right? Why? Right? The prophet Isaiah, what does he do? Smashes the idols. The prophet Jeremiah smashes the idols. Moses, he comes down from the mountain, he sees the people bowing before the golden calf, he smashes the golden calf. The prophet Muhammad, when he comes to the temple at Mecca, what does he do? He smashes the idols. What is this about? Why is idol smashing such a big part of what prophets do? Right? This is what prophets do. Jesus drove the money changers out of the temple. He walked into the temple at Jerusalem and turns over the table. Why is it that prophets are always going around smashing idols? What does this mean? Now, the way people generally think of this is they say, well, these people, they were bowing before these idols or these fetishes, these statues. They thought they were God. And that's stupid because they were worshiping inanimate objects. You're not supposed to do that. And so they were saying, don't do that. Worship the real God. Don't worship this inanimate object. And that is the standard interpretation. Thomas Carlyle points out that there's a flaw in that. Do we really think that human beings were stupid enough to just go, oh, I'm going to cut a piece of wood and it's God? No, right? Oh, I'm going to cut a piece of stone. I carved this stone. It's God. I just made it. You know, you can make a God in your backyard. You can make a God in your garage. Were people really that stupid? I mean, some people might have been, okay? But I don't think most people were actually that stupid that they believed that they could, you know, they could carve them up a God. Oh, got a free day here. Let's carve us up a God and put it in the backyard. I don't think people are that stupid. People aren't that stupid, right? And that's kind of a colonial attitude. People assume, oh, well, these people in Africa, they worship statues. Oh, how stupid is that? Oh, no, they don't worship statues, right? If you look at what idols, fetishes, graven images are, they are not, and this is important, they are not in and of themselves meant to be God. They are an item, a ritual item that is created by human beings as a symbol that is used in a ritual, right? You know, that the reason they're bowing for it is they're bowing to a real God, but they built like an altar, or they built like a statue. It's a prop, okay? So why then are the prophets always going around and smashing the props, right? We know, you know, Moses, the children of Israel did not literally believe that the golden calf was God, right? They were just so stupid. They made this calf. No, right? The ancient Arabs, they didn't think that those statues in Mecca were gods. They had originally built these statues to stand for a principle, to stand for a truth. But the people had forgotten that truth, and they had fallen into a routine. Those statues had originally been erected and created in order to point to certain truths and certain true spiritual power that exists. And they were meant to be a symbol of that true spiritual power. But what happened is that the people forgot the truth that the idol or the statue stood for. So the prophet, Isaiah, Moses, Muhammad, the prophet comes to earth to sweep away the idols in order to reconnect mankind with the truth that the idol once stood for. That is what it means. And that's what Thomas Carlyle points out in his writing. That the idol represents routinism. It represents passionless, cold belief, going through the motions, believing things and not knowing why you believe them or why they're true. That's what the idol represents. And the prophet is one who comes to the earth filled with the Spirit of God, filled with passion, filled with truth and energy. And so Isaiah shows up and he smashes the idols and connects the children of Israel with the true God. Moses shows up and he smashes the golden calf and he says, "Thou shalt make no golden images or graven images. I've got the 10 commandments here. We're going to follow the true God that I just encountered up on the mountain." Right? And the prophet Muhammad, right? That's what this ring symbolizes. That's why I wear this ring. The prophet Muhammad, he and his followers, they went to the temple at Mecca and they smashed the idols. And the prophet Muhammad saw that as such an important moment that he wore a piece of one of the idols on his ring. And when I heard that story, and that's why Shia Muslim men wear a ring like this, I thought I have to get a ring like this. I identify with that tradition. The idol smashing and returning of passion to the earth. I identify with that so much. But you know what? The Chinese Revolution also started with the smashing of idols. Dr. Sun Yat-sen, the father of the Chinese Great Revival, the founder of the Chinese Republic, Dr. Sun Yat-sen, his first revolutionary act, you know what it was? Is that in China, they humiliated peasants. Peasants had to go make sacrifices and bow before idols. The local landlord would set up an idol and he would make the peasants bow and burn some of their crops and do this humiliating ritual for the idols. So Dr. Sun Yat-sen, a young man in his early 20s, from a wealthier background, not a poor man, he went to a temple one day and he saw a bunch of peasants having to bow before a graven image, an idol. And Dr. Sun Yat-sen, the father of the Chinese Revolution, the father of Chinese communism, what did Dr. Sun Yat-sen do? He flew into a rage and he ran to the front of the room and he smashed the idols. Dr. Sun Yat-sen was an idol smasher, right? And that the smashers of idols are those who restore truth and passion and tear down arbitrary authority and tear down routine and tear down pointless oppression. They tear down meaningless hierarchies and rituals, and they restore truth and passion to the earth, and they carry with them the Spirit of God. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. You know, and because of that, you know, I really can identify with the tradition of the idol smashers. And so there you go. And the reason that this is related to communism, right? What does this have to do with the question? Is because I think that in all the countries where communists took power, the church had become an idol. The church had become routinist. And it had to be swept away. Those idols had to be smashed so that the truth could reassert itself. It was like, you know, it was a phase the communists had to go, you know, you had to sweep away the old to make clear for the new, right? And so this oppressive church that's tied in with feudalism, that's corrupt, had to be swept away by an atheistic communist revolution to make room for the true Spirit of God to return. You have to smash the idols before the true God can return. So the communists played a powerful spiritual role. Their role, even though they were atheistic and even though they rejected all spirituality, they were clearing the way. They were clearing the way for the principles and the truth that the idols once stood for and the religion once stood for to return. You know, if you have feudalism in Europe and peasants being oppressed in the name of the Catholic Church and kings who claim that God put them on the throne, they have divine right. You can't have people become genuine Christian revolutionaries, right? So that had to be swept away. The Protestant Reformation, the French Revolution, these things were necessary to sweep away the idols and return the passion to the earth. That's what I believe. And that the communists were just a necessary, it was something that had to happen, right? When the message of God becomes corrupted, it is necessary for the corruption of God's image to be swept away so that the truth can return. And that may be deeply offensive to people of different countries. And I'm not here to judge, you know, religion is a personal, private matter, and I respect everyone's views, but that's what I believe. And that's why the communists, they had to come and smash the idols so that the truth could return. All right. All righty. Okay. Next, how can overproduction get us over the hurdles of neoliberal economics so we aren't talking about Marx in a scientific manner? Well, first of all, you know, when you talk about overproduction, we're talking about the tendency of capitalism to produce more than the purchasing power of the worker. The worker cannot buy back the product he produces. Many people think overproduction means making too much stuff and using up Mother Earth's resources. And it drives me up the wall because overproduction is such an important concept to understand. And there are videos on the internet of dumb people, you know, just going on about, oh my God, Caleb's always talking about overproduction. I thought he was against degrowth. I am against degrowth. And overproduction causes degrowth. If you actually understand the Marxist concept of overproduction, you would never say anything. And they don't ever bother to learn from us. Never occurs to them that we might know something. The Marxist understanding of overproduction is the capitalist is always producing more goods than the worker has the ability to buy back. and people become homeless because there are too many houses, and people become hungry because there is too much food. That's the Marxist concept of overproduction. And no, that's not being taught. People are being taught a cultural and postmodern reinterpretation that draws from Marxism. That's what people are being taught. Look, we have to teach it. At the end of the day, it's up to us, right? We have to teach it, right? That's all there is to it. We can't expect anyone else to teach this ideology, right? There are many people who speak in the name of Marxism. They don't believe this, right? I mean, I've talked to many of these people. They just straight up don't believe it, right? They just don't believe in overproduction. They don't believe that capitalism has this problem. They think the problem with capitalism is that it creates growth. They want to stop growth. They're working with the ruling class to foment degrowth and build a degrowth fascist movement, right? I mean, Vijay Prashad was just heroically exposed by Peter Coffin and Fox Green and others that Vijay Prashad does not believe in economic growth. He's a degrowther, and that he tried to cover that up, but that is a fact. He's a degrowther. So many of the so-called Marxists just don't believe in growth, and they don't really believe in socialism. They believe in degrowthism, which is the ideology, the Malthusian ideology of the ruling class dressed in Marxian clothes. So we just have to teach it ourselves, right? Go my book, the whole first chapter of my book, which is now available as an audiobook from Tyler. The whole first chapter is about degrowth, or is about overproduction and the tendency of the falling rate of profit. But I also recommend you go read Low Wage Capitalism by Fred Goldstein. I also recommend you go read The Future is Up to Us by Nelson Puri. I recommend you go read High Tech, Low Pay by Sam Marcy. I recommend that you read Towards Soviet America by William Z. Foster. I recommend that you read Fascism and Social Revolution by R. Palm Dutt. All of these books talk about overproduction and give a Marxist analysis of the problems of capitalism. And that's what I would recommend. Genuine Marxism addresses this issue. Whatever these people believe on the campuses these days doesn't. The fake Marxism. I've heard you mention that the film The Interview was influenced by the U.S. State Department. Can you elaborate or suggest sources? Well, it's been a while since I've read about that, but my understanding was that that's a result of WikiLeaks. If I'm not mistaken, WikiLeaks revealed that, right? That originally, when they made The Interview, it was going to be about a fictional country, and then the State Department, the U.S. government, suggested that they make it about North Korea and use the film to ideologically attack North Korea. My understanding, if I remember correctly, is that that was revealed, I think, by WikiLeaks. Edward Snowden revealed that, or Edward Snowden, or Julian Assange, or the WikiLeaks. My understanding is that was a leak that came out, right? Is that the involvement of the U.S. government in that propaganda film against North Korea, that was revealed by it was one of the leaks that happened during the Obama administration. I could be wrong though. It's been a while since I've thought about that, but my understanding, I'd have to Google it and up sources on that. WikiLeaks revealed so much information. So much was revealed by WikiLeaks, and that's why they're targeting Julian Assange. That's why they're trying to silence him, because they brought to light so many things that the U.S. imperialists don't want people to be aware of. So there you go, folks. All right, folks. It's been a great stream tonight. I really had a great time. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. They're unsubscribing people, and it's really annoying. But a new upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today. Thank you, everyone, and good night.